Welcome to another DragonLance Saga Dungeon Mastering 101 episode. I am the floating head of the night. I just like wearing black shirts, and then it just means that you can't see me. It's like everything's green, and it's just a head floating in space. Look, if you can't take good DM advice from a floating head, who can you take it from? Really? It is Palast Frost Cult the 8th. My name is Adam, and today I'm continuing my Dragonlance gaming series all about dungeon mastering. Today we're going to discuss the foundational philosophy of dungeon mastering in this DM mindset episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe, ring the bell, and you can support this channel by becoming a patron on Patreon or a member on YouTube. You can even pick up Dragonlance Media using my affiliate links in the description below. And you too could have a floating head of your own. All right, so look, this entire dungeon mastering series is meant to be fun and informative and give you a little bit of insight and information about my approach, but also I'd love to hear from, all of you how you dungeon masters go about prepping for games or dealing with conflicts or adjusting on the fly when things don't quite go according to plan, whatever that plan may be. So please let us know in the comments or in the description if you're joining us live. Of course, you can throw it out there in YouTube Live or in Twitch live chat, and we can have a bit of a back and forth about it. But ultimately, this is not meant to be a lecture. It's meant to be a dialogue, much like a D&D game itself, right? So, let's have a dialogue. Let's just have a little bit of fun, right? All right. So the core idea of all of this is a dungeon master's first job is understanding people. That's right. It's all applied psychology when you really look underneath the hood of dungeon mastering. It's just understanding the individuals at your table and how to adjust on the fly when you need to based on those individuals. But first, you got to understand them. So before rules, before world building, before all of your prep is even begun, your responsibility as a dungeon master begins with recognizing the humanity at the table. And I hear some of you crying foul. Why do you care about the humanity of the people at the table? You are the dungeon master. You have all of the power. You can do anything. And yeah, you do. And yes, you can until your players leave because you are acting like, you're a god instead of another human at a table playing a game designed for 8 to 12-year-olds. So let's just keep that in mind. Every player brings with them different backgrounds, expectations, and motivations to the game. And all of this is informed by their players that they're playing and the story that you're setting up at the table. And the differences between each and every one of those players, they're not obstacles, they're actually fuel for the game because everyone pulls on their own life experiences, the regions where they were raised, the socio-political norms of how they were raised. And it all comes to the game table, whether it's intentional or not. You can't help but be influenced by who and what you are in the decision-making that you engage in throughout the game. Right? So we know it's role playing. You're supposed to be adopting a role, but the way that you interpret those roles, the way that you sort of peel back the layers of what the character is heavily informed by your own background and experiences. So I just had like some pistachios and I feel like my voice, I'm like losing my voice. Pistachios destroyed my voice. So, a dungeon master's mindset should start with celebration of the people at the table, not control over those people at the table. And I think for me personally, this came full circle when I started playing Dungeons and Dragons with my kid, because then I started understanding that, playing Dungeons and Dragons as the dungeon master is very much like parenting. Your kids are not carbon copies of you. They are very different individuals, even from each other. everyone has their own personalities and ways of interpreting things. And so if you're going to come from the exact same household and still have wildly disparate views and experiences and expressions, then throw in other people and it's even more different and convoluted. Not as a negative way, just, convoluted. So you have to understand at the baseline that we're all different and we're going to be understanding things differently. This goes all the way down to the way they understand you as you describe events, to the way you adjudicate the rules, to the way that you interpret their characters or their characters' actions and how that differs from them. It is all going to be a series of interpretations and expressions. And we as Dungeon Masters really just have to understand that we don't know everything about everyone. And it's all a learning experience, just like life. And let's just have a little fun with it, right? Corey, thanks for tuning in. They're great storytellers. Yeah, and that is the heart of the role, right? So as soon as you understand the people, then it's easy to weave narrative for them. And that's really what I'm getting to with this particular episode. Ryan, how you doing? Yo ho ho. How you doing? Thanks for tuning in. All right, so principle numero uno. Let me look at how many of these I got. I got 8 different principles we're going to be going through today. I don't think this is going to be a very long episode, but I'll try to throw in anecdotes and whatever. Try to make it fun. But the first principle is personal responsibility. This is not a fun phrase for anyone to hear. It's usually used when parents are like punishing you when people are talking about responsibility. But it's important as a human adult to understand the concept so that you can then apply it to the game table when appropriate. And you'd be surprised at how often it's appropriate. Not necessarily from a human to human, but for a character, understanding a character's personal responsibility as well. So you, as the Dungeon Master, are responsible for the tone and the environment of the table. You're the Dungeon Master. You're running the game. Players follow your emotional lead. So if you're calm, players will be calm. If you're stressed, players will be stressed. And I've run every type of game, even to the point where it gets hostile. Like hostile games where I am like aggressively reacting to players and they're aggressively reacting to me. And even when I was a player, I've run into this situation where the DM is acting hostile to me and I'm responding in kind. And you just can't help as a human being when people sort of come at you in a certain way to reciprocate that, right? It's natural to do that. And what you always have to remember is that this is supposed to be fun. This is supposed to be a game. So chill the F out, right? Bring the temperature down a notch or 7. So you control what you can as the Dungeon Master, the pacing. And I covered a lot of this in the last episode. The pacing, the clarity, the fairness of your rulings, and of course, your individual reactions to the story and to the players. You do not control the players. You've got to understand that first and foremost. It is not your job to tell them what to do, how to think, how to control their characters, or any of that. That's their job. That's their responsibility. Your responsibility is to facilitate them in their role playing and to set up scenes for them to engage with. As long as you understand where your personal responsibility begins and ends as a Dungeon Master, you suddenly feel so much lighter and less stressed out. Because you are not responsible for how they feel. You're not responsible for how they act or any of that. As long as you're keeping an even tone and you're bringing a little bit of joy and fun, and when you're engaging in the NPCs or the atmospheres, you're adding that sense of danger or mystery or romance or whatever it is that you're bringing to the game, or humor. You want to make sure that they're playing off of that, not, you were yelled at by some rando dude in the street and now you're bringing that stress to the table. You don't want to bring any outside anything to the table, all right? So just take a deep breath and have fun. So, you run a LARP as well. It's more apparent there. It gets crazy. Really? Okay, so you have to excuse me because this is new for me. I've never seen a LARP that is not intended to be a joke of a LARP session. So when you say it gets serious and crazy, it sort of pulls me back to the people who used to LARP that I had heard about but I never engaged with, Vampire the Masquerade, and how crazy that got. Like, people would lose their minds over rulings and stuff with that. Is it the same way with D&D? I got to know. So I won't spend time on it, but I'm curious. Don't forget the snacks and drinking. Yeah. Gotta have snacks. I'm the jerk that brings like fruit wedges and like vegetables and dip. You know, I don't bring junk food, and I just don't drink soda in general, like ever. So, I'll bring like water and like vegetables and fruit, and everyone's just like, yay. Thanks for the snacks, Adam. All right. So the second principle is perspective awareness. It's a big deal. No group is a monolith. No individual is a monolith. So every player experiences the game differently. Of course, every player is playing their own player. They're not playing the collective group of the player. And so they're engaging in wildly different ways. Just in last episode, I was talking about how you need to make sure that every individual feels valued and like they're having fun at the table. And if it's been a while, then you need to roll them into the action of whatever is transpiring in the story. This is why, because every player experiences everything differently. So you need to avoid all of those assumptions that are normal to have and just sort of divorce yourself from that idea. And you need to then start engaging them as individual players rather than the group as a whole. This is something that I try to do every single session, and it's something that's really, really important to ensure that players feel like they're having impact on the game and that they're having fun with the game. The next thing with the perspective awareness is effective DMing means recognizing role-playing comfort levels, tactical interests, social dynamics, and individual limits and preferences. And I talked all about this in previous episodes where I was talking about player types and how to deal with players. This is all stuff, again, all of these, this whole series of DM101 is meant to build on each other. So I've already discussed the nit and gritty of some of this stuff already, so I'm not going to, retread old ground here, but always keep in mind that, you need to be paying attention to the players and making sure that however they want to be playing, that you're feeding into that. And look, the reality is if you don't want that responsibility, don't DM the game. Have someone else do it. And if it comes down to the fact that you're just that forever DM and you can never be a player and no one else wants to DM, you could always find another group if you don't want to do it, or you can learn to love it because there's a lot to love about being a dungeon master, as long as you understand some of these principles that I'm outlining here. And so ultimately, you need to adapt your approach to humans that are playing the game and not the rules that govern the game. And as long as you understand that, then you're going to start making calls about the rules and paying less attention to the rules and more attention to the players having fun. And again, that's the underlying point of the whole thing. All right, principle numero tres? Yeah. The table as a shared space. You aren't performing for your players. You're collaborating with your players. I know I'm doing like an emphasis on that, but it is an important idea that not everyone understands. Everyone has had I don't want to extrapolate here. A lot of people have had dungeon masters where they sort of stretch their arms around the table and they're like, this is my domain and you are playing in my sandbox. So you will do what I say. And that is one way of running a game. It's not for everyone. For people who enjoy it, then it's awesome. But if you don't enjoy it, you need to understand that you're meant to be collaborating with the players throughout the game. You're not meant to be controlling them. So the world that you're crafting only exists because everyone, you and the players, agree to hold it together. As long as they're having fun, they're going to be willing participants of this campaign milieu, to lean on a little Gygaxian phrasing. And as soon as they stop having fun, they're popping smoke and getting out of Dodge because they don't want to be in the game that you are running if they're not having fun. Now, your players, you need to understand, are not obstacles in your story. They're the engines of your story. So a lot of this is just sort of repeating the same idea where it's not about you and it's not about the players. It's about both of you together. And as long as you can come to terms with that, everyone's going to have a great time. So a DM's mindset should always prioritize the shared experience over any personal plans that they may have outlined. Because again, you can always get them back on track narratively by having a little bit of fun and going down those wild rabbit holes that they will inevitably go down. I've done it almost every game session, and every one of you, I'm sure, has done the same thing. So always keep that in mind. Nothing wrong with being health conscious? Yeah, that's what I think. I exercise every morning. Like, it's not something I enjoy doing. I just do it. And so why would I then give it up with junk food? I say that as we're rolling into the holidays. I just made like this delicious batch of shortbread and dipped it in chocolate. So I'm not totally health conscious, you know, and I'm as hypocritical as everyone else when it comes to food. But I try. You think people who have at least tried DMing at least once in the past tend to appreciate the DM more and respect them. And I think that's fair. I think everyone should give it a go, see whether it works for them. And you might realize that you love it and you might realize you hate it. And in either case, you're going to learn where your personal boundaries lie when it comes to running or playing a game. And I think that's really important because not only is it going to give you empathy for the dungeon master or vice versa for the players, but it's going to let you appreciate the time and effort that a lot of dungeon masters go into setting a game up, because it's very, very rarely everyone just sits down and runs. You know, I mean, usually there's a lot, like hours of prep beforehand. And when you have a family, when you have jobs and responsibilities, when you got yard work or housework to do, your time becomes very, very valuable to you, and you don't want to waste it. You know what I mean? You run at least 20 minutes every day, and if you miss the day, you just add 20 minutes to the next day. Tomorrow, for example, you're due to run for 4 months. Nice. All right, principle number 4. We're halfway through here. Intent over perfection. Great DMing is not about flawless preparation, because again, you'll never anticipate every character's choices. It's about the intention, it's about the empathy, and it's about the flexibility. So you have to have your roadmap of what you imagine you could accomplish in your session, however long that may be. You have to have your roadmap of story beats that you think are germane to the progression of the story you're telling. And then you have to be able to maneuver when that gets thrown out the window, as it will. So always remember that the intention behind your campaign may be to, have your heroes overthrow an evil sorcerer. They don't have to do it in the way that you planned out, and they probably won't. So as long as the intention is met, that's really all that matters. The table will forgive mistakes if they trust your intent. If they know that you're trying to run them through a fun game, then they're going to be okay with you giving bad rulings or making mistakes or forgetting combat stats or, forgetting initiative order, like little things like that. They're going to be okay with, because they are invested in you as the dungeon master and your ability to tell a compelling story with them. And it's going to be okay. You just have to realize that everyone makes mistakes, because we're all human, and that's what humans do. In the best case, we learn from those mistakes and we try not to repeat them. But if you do, again, you're human. It's normal. It's okay. And ultimately, as anything in life, you actually learn from your mistakes. I know it's trite to say it, but it's true. So don't be afraid of making mistakes. Okay, and ultimately the final point of principle 4, intent over perfection, is confidence is not knowing the perfect rule. It's being steady when you make the rule. So if someone tries something just crazy and you just have to come up with a ruling on the fly, just lean back on your experience with the game system and just make the ruling. It doesn't have to be what they expect the ruling to be. It doesn't have to necessarily even be what the system says it should be, as long as it makes logical sense in the moment and you just try to have fun with the outcome. And that's kind of it. All right, so principle number 5, curiosity and humility. I would say this is arguably just a human trait you should adopt in general, but we'll just leave it with dungeon mastering for now. Ask questions. Learn what excites your players. If you don't know your players, you can't really help weave an entertaining story for them. And this is really difficult when you have pickup players or brand new players to the table. But through the course of playing, you're going to unravel that onion. You're gonna get to the bottom layers and understand what really makes them tick as a player. And then you can plan accordingly moving forward. Let your players surprise you. That's where the best stories come from. Don't be so rigid. I've said it over and over ad nauseum, but it is an important thing to note, an important idea to keep close, is that your players will always surprise you. Let them. It's okay. Just go with it. And ultimately, you are not the sole creative force at the table. You are the conductor of many creative forces. So as long as you understand that going forward, you practice a little bit of curiosity in your players and their decision making, a little humility with your plans and adjusting them on the fly, you're going to do all right. Principle. To you, being a DM is a huge learning experience every time it was your turn to be DM. Yeah, Corey, I think that's first of all, it's a great reflection on DMing, but it's also a great way to approach it moving forward too. Principle number 6. Emotional regulation is a DM skill. It's one that I've had to work on and I still work on because I don't have it down yet. But your energy sets the emotional climate. When things get chaotic, you become the stabilizing force. So you can maintain structure and order just by being even keel when the players are spinning tops. And you just present that face of calm assurity, and they will eventually follow suit. When momentum starts to lag, you gotta ignite that spark. Find out what is going to bring a little bit of excitement into the game and just put it there. Even if you haven't planned it, it doesn't matter. So if people are bored and they're sitting around a campfire and one group is just doing this role-playing thing for like the past 20, 30 minutes, and half the group is sitting here just like twiddling their thumbs or they're picking up their phones and they're not really paying attention, you need to start throwing in roles like perceptions or insight roles or something, because you can have all sorts of stuff. What if Bigfoot is like walking just out in the tree line? Is Bigfoot in your games? Maybe he is now. What if it's just an owl swooping by, but people think it's something much greater as soon as you ask for a perception roll? And you're just like, oh my God. So you suddenly break them out of the monotony and you force them to start paying attention and being active instead of just engaging in whatever it is that's making people bored. Okay, so a professional DM mindset includes managing your own reactions and reading the room. So again, this is a universal human adult trait of understanding to read the room and behave accordingly. We've all run into those individuals that don't seem to have any filters, and they just sort of like, they're reflecting as if they're wildly overexcited when everyone else in the room is just sort of casual, or they're super down and everyone else is bubbling up. If you don't read the room at the table of what you're expecting it to be, and you're then exhibiting behavior, you're going to start seeing the players following course with that. So if you're down and sad, they're going to ultimately just get less excited and a little bit more droll. It's just natural to unconsciously mimic behavior of those around you. It's a normal human trait that happens. And it's ultimately, I think, so that we learn how to fit into our tribal groups from our primordial ancestry. But it is something that still affects us. And so you as the DM need to make sure that you are up and on so that everyone else will be up and on as well. Troll jumps out in front of you and just wiggles it for a minute and then runs away. All right, principle number 7. Trust is greater than control. The goal is not to make players follow your plan. The goal is to build trust so that the players feel safe making bold decisions because how can I phrase this? You have opened up the space for them to do wild and wacky things so they feel like they can trust you when they try wild and wacky things later on. And that's good. That's okay. It makes it super fun to play. Trust leads then to engagement. So if you're giving them autonomy to do whatever the hell they want in the game, they're going to do whatever the hell they want, but they're going to be more engaged in the process because they're always going to trying to find ways of interacting with the scene you're setting if you're letting them do whatever. If you're very restrictive, then they're not going to want to interact with the world you're setting because you're too restrictive with it. So encourage them and then open up the space and let them play in it. Engagement then, of course, leads to the story, which is the point of role-playing games, is unraveling that story that the players are helping you tell. And story then, ultimately, leads to those unforgettable moments that everyone comes for. Now, in my actual plays, recently we had one which was totally shocking and surprising to me about a player death and a player choosing to follow an evil god out of seemingly nowhere. Wildly interesting storytelling, and it is a wildly unforgettable moment in gaming. And I have those types of stories every few sessions, and it's because you allow room for exploration and room for players to really make their mark on a scene. And that's just fun. It's fun for everyone. So ultimately, the last principle here, the mindset before the mechanics. Understand that rules can be learned. Encounters can be built. And NPCs can be improvised. All of that stuff, as much as you plan and want to anticipate choices and do your best job, sometimes all that work that you've done is thrown out the window. And so you need to really just narrate and adjudicate based on your own experience and the players themselves. And sometimes you just have to throw the rules out the window because they're not going to cover a certain situation, or you don't like how they're framing the situation and you want to give your players a little bit of extra room or space. Don't limit yourself to the game system itself, right? So yes, I'm running a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition 2024 rule set game, but the minute that the rules don't cover something that is requested, or I don't like how it's restricting players, then I'm going to ignore them as a dungeon master, and I'm going to adjudicate on the side of intrigue and fun over whatever those ridiculous rules have to say. And if you don't know the rules, relax. It's okay. You'll learn them. You will learn them. I guarantee it. None of it matters if this mindset is wrong. DMing begins with the understanding that you are not building a game, you're building an experience. And as long as you understand that again, the game is less important than the experience of playing it with your friends, whether they're old friends or new friends. That's the real point of all of this. And it's your job as the dungeon master to always keep that in mind so that when you're running the game, the players are feeding off of that energy. They're having a great time as well. And you'll have those wonderful memories by playing this fantastic game together. So my ultimate takeaway was a dungeon master is the facilitator, stabilizer, narrator, collaborator, and a student of behavior. This is the DM mindset. It is the foundation of which every technique rests. And once that mindset is established, everything else becomes easier. Prepping, improv, world building, encounters, and rulings all just start to flow naturally. And that means less stress for you and more fun for the players. So that's what I think is really, really important for the Dungeon Master's mindset. What do you think? Again, the best way to play TTRPGs is the way that you like to play them, in the system you like playing, with the people. Sorry, that freaking pistachios. With the people you like playing with. Everyone is going to be running games different. Everyone's going to be playing different games. And it's all good as long as you're having fun. That's the only thing that matters. All right, what do you guys have to say about this? Rules are just guidelines. Here. As game runners, it is hard to remember players have their own inside game. What seems out of the blue is often a long time in the making. Yeah, Ryan, that's actually a really, really great point. And it's sort of touched on early here, where I'm talking about how, you have to kind of know human nature and understand that players interpret things differently, because players can have an entire narrative slowly building about their character and the world that you're running that is wholly disparate from other players and you as the DM. And it doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it different. And so you have to be able to roll with stuff like that and have some fun with it, because it doesn't have to derail anything. And in almost every case, it never derails anything. A lot of other players will sort of pick up on it and have fun with it as well, as long as you have a healthy, happy group, right? We've always had those groups that do not mesh well, and you do have to address that stuff. But I've covered that in previous episodes. So, all right, let's see. What else? Watching Lauren early in the session, you saw something like that coming. The anti-Kender bias seemed to be getting to her in that game. Yeah, I noticed that too. I didn't think it would go where it went, but I noticed it. Player used made-up Elvish words during your latest session. Hey, Ian, thanks for tuning in. Kaganasi Elf Paladin prayed in a scene in which bandits were buried. Excellent, as he pushed himself, trusted the table. That's a lot of fun. That's really cool. I like that a lot. Chris, one minor pet peeve is when players send in thy NPCs to do the fun stuff. Yeah, that's my pet peeve too. All right, so that is my take on this episode. I'd love to hear all of your thoughts watching this after the fact or watching it live. Did you see the comedy Key and Peele skit about role-playing games and the DM? GZDR4EV, I did not. But now I'm going to have to search YouTube for it. Because Key and Peele are hilarious. And if they're talking about RPGs and DMs, then yeah, I want to know. So I'll check it and I'll let you know for sure what I think. Thanks for tuning in live, by the way. All right, so that's it for this episode of Dungeon Mastering 101, the DM Mindset. Do you have any tips or tricks based on your experience as a player or dungeon master? Was I off base in any of my suggestions? Feel free to email me at info@dlsaga.com or leave a comment below. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel, ring the bell, and you can support this channel by becoming a patron on Patreon or a member on this YouTube channel. You can also pick up DragonLance gaming materials using my affiliate links in the description below. Thank you to creator patron Aaron Hardy, producer patron Azrael, and developer patron Chris Androu. This channel is all about celebrating the wonderful world of the DragonLance Saga, and I hope you'll join in that celebration. Thank you for watching. This has been Adam with DragonLance Saga, and until next time, Slanjavar.